You know, the dream of owning your own home is, well, it's a really powerful one. But for so many South Africans, it feels like it's just out of reach. So, who's actually trying to change that? In this explainer, we are going to crack open the 2024 annual report from the National Housing Finance Corporation, the NHFC, to see exactly how this key government agency is trying to solve the country's massive housing crisis.
So, here's what we're going to cover. First, we'll get a handle on just how big this housing challenge is. Then, we'll properly introduce you to the NHFC and its main tool, a program called First Home Finance. After that, we'll get into the numbers from its latest performance report, look at the real-world hurdles they face, and then we'll peek into what's coming next.
All right, so to really get what the NHFC is all about, you first have to understand the sheer scale of the problem it was built to solve. And honestly, it's a challenge of staggering proportions.
And wow, this quote from the Minister of Human Settlements really just cuts right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It's such a stark reminder that we're not just talking about abstract numbers here. We're talking about real people, real families, living in informal settlements and backyard shacks, all waiting for a shot at a better life. This is exactly what makes the NHFC's mission so urgent.
And here it is, the number that puts everything into perspective. According to the Department of Human Settlements, just over 2.6 million people are on the National Housing Needs Register. Yeah, you heard that right. That's the official waiting list. It's an absolutely massive figure that shows you just how immense the demand truly is. So, with a challenge that huge, what is the government's primary financial tool for tackling it? Well, the answer lies with the National Housing Finance Corporation, or as we've been calling it, the NHFC.
So the NHFC is what's known as a development finance institution. The easiest way to think of it is like a specialized bank, but one with a social mission. Its whole purpose is to make homeownership a reality for low to middle income families. You know, the very people who are often completely shut out of the traditional property market.
And you've got to understand, this isn't just about government policy. This is a constitutional right. The entire reason the NHFC exists is rooted in Section 26 of the Constitution, which guarantees every single South African the right to adequate housing. That really elevates their work from just another government program to a fundamental moral and legal duty.
So the NHFC's work is guided by a set of core values. You've got the ones you'd expect, right? Accountability, integrity. But there's one that really stands out: Ubuntu. This uniquely South African idea of I am because we are, well, it speaks to something much deeper. It's not just about building houses. It's about building communities and recognizing our shared humanity in the process.
Okay, so how does the NHFC actually make all this happen in the real world? Well, its main engine for change is a program you need to know about called First Home Finance.
Let's break down how this actually works, because it's pretty smart. First Home Finance is basically a government subsidy for first-time homebuyers. It's a one-time payment, but here's the clever part. The money doesn't actually go to you. It goes straight to your bank, to your lender, and it reduces the total amount of your home loan. What does that mean for you? It means your monthly mortgage payments are lower, right from day one, making the whole idea of owning a home that much more affordable.
All right, so that's the theory, that's the plan. But how did it actually play out? Let's check out the scorecard from the 2023/24 financial year.
Get this, in the last financial year alone, the NHFC pushed 315 million rand in subsidies into the housing market. That is a huge amount of money, a massive investment in making that dream of homeownership a reality for thousands of people.
And of course, behind that big number are the real stories. That 315 million rand translated into 4,623 families getting the subsidy that helped them secure their very first home. We're talking about thousands and thousands of lives directly changed for the better.
But wait, the NHFC's impact doesn't stop with home buyers. It's also working to change the housing industry from the inside out. As you can see from this chart, a really significant chunk of its funding goes to supporting small and medium-sized businesses, especially those owned by women, young people, and Black entrepreneurs. This is a huge step in building a housing sector that's way more inclusive and fair for everyone.
And this is what it's all for. These aren't just units on a spreadsheet. These are homes. These are communities. This picture right here shows you the real-world result of all that money and policy. A brand new neighborhood, full of life, taking shape. But of course, it's never quite that simple, is it? The report also gives us a pretty honest reality check on the challenges that come with a mission this huge and this complicated.
The numbers, they look impressive for sure. But what's the experience really like for the people on the ground? Just how smooth is that application process for those who are trying to get this help?
And to their credit, the annual report is really transparent about this. It shows that a total of 722 complaints were received over the year. Now, the good news is that they resolved 100% of them. But that number itself tells a story, doesn't it? It tells us that for a lot of applicants, the journey is not without its bumps and frustrations.
So what's causing all the friction? Well, the report points to a few main culprits: technical system glitches, the extra time it takes to process manual or walk-in applications, and some growing pains with a new payment system between the NHFC and the banks. These are the real operational hurdles they're trying to clear.
This image here, it just perfectly captures that whole journey. On one side, you see a project still under construction. That's the hard work, the challenges, the grind. And then on the other side, you see a thriving community. A really powerful reminder that progress takes time, but that end result is so worth it.
So, with thousands of families helped, but literally millions still waiting, where does the NHFC go from here? What does the future look like?
This is a pretty big deal. The NHFC is on the verge of a major transformation. The report reveals it's actually evolving into something much bigger, the Human Settlements Development Bank. Now, this isn't just a simple name change. It's a signal of a much wider mission and a more powerful role in shaping the entire future of housing in South Africa.
And all of this leaves us with this one final, really important question. The NHFC's work is clearly making a huge difference for thousands of families. But with 2.6 million people still on that waiting list, the gap between the progress they're making and the total need is still just vast. What combination of money, policy, and new ideas will it finally take to close that gap and truly, finally house a nation?